hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday. So how are you kids doing today? I hope you're doing well. I hope everybody is doing fine. I'm doing okay. We're doing fine. And we're here one more time for another Splash Studio Live. Another art class, free art class for kids. So we're teaching kids from 4 to 94. So everybody's welcome to participate. And I hope that parents will work with their kids and grandparents will work with your children. So every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock, we have this free art class on Facebook Live. And every Saturday at 11, we have a free art class. So I'm sure we're getting a lot of new students. So, okay, what are we going to do today? Today we're going to do another watercolor painting. And we're going to use some techniques that I want kids to get used to using. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the horizon line and the feelings that you can put into your artwork. We want to think about when you make art, number one, have fun, number one. Number two, give 110%. Always do your best. Number three, never, ever give up and never quit. And never say, I can't. Also, never complain, because mistakes are good in art. Sometimes we have happy mistakes, and sometimes, hopefully, we learn from all of our mistakes. So everything that we do in class is basically practice, okay? So it's by drawing and painting over and over and over again a lot. You know, I think if you like art, you should draw or paint every day. You should make something every day, create something every day. And you will eventually get better. Everybody will eventually get better, okay? That's just how we are wired as human beings. So when we're making art, we're learning a new language. And that language is a visual language. We're learning how to see. And in Splash class, I'm teaching you how to see, and I'm teaching you how to use your materials. If you can see it, you can do it. If you can see it in your mind, you can do it. And as we always say, that art is from the heart as well, if you use your heart. So enjoy the class today. We're going to learn some cool techniques. And if you don't complete your assignment today or your project today, you can always replay this live feed and complete it later, okay? So today we're going to be painting in watercolors. So let's go to the drafting table. First, you're going to need a sheet of paper, and all the Splash students, you have your mixed media pad or your watercolor pad. Just tear a sheet out of that pad. You need a clean sheet of paper. You're going to need your tin of watercolors. You're going to, first we're going to use a wide brush because we're going to do a wash. One of the most important techniques in watercolor painting is the wash, okay? And I have two brushes here. This is my widest brush. I like this brush better for a wash because the hairs, the bristles are softer. Okay, so this is a synthetic brush. Usually, if your brush is white and looks kind of like plastic, the hairs look kind of like plastic, it's synthetic, and they are usually soft. You need paper. Or not paper, but a tissue or a rag to clean your brush and everything, clean up. Okay. And my watercolor tin is very dirty. And since we're going to do a wash, I'm going to do a painting. I'm going to copy a painting that my wife did. She painted, and I don't know what the title. Do you know what the title of your painting is?
No.
Okay, I don't know if you can see this, But this is her painting, very beautiful. It was done in acrylics, I believe, right?
Possibly. It's difficult to
Yeah, she paints in acrylics and oils. So this painting is very ethereal, and I like that. Very meditative, you know, it can soothe you, very calming, and I like that. So acrylics is a little different than watercolors because acrylics are a little bit thicker and they look a little bit more like plastic, have a more plastic look, where watercolors have a watery look. So, but you can still get the same, similar effects, okay, with watercolor. So she's using her acrylics, but they almost look like watercolors. And that's because she had many layers. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is paint the background. We're going to paint the background, and the background is going to be at the top. Always think of the top of your paper as the background, and the middle of the paper, that's the background too. And usually the bottom portion of your paper is going to be the foreground. So we're going to use one color, and we're just going to put a wash of light blue, and the blue in your tin is dark. So what you have to do is, and I'm going to mix my blue on a sheet of paper. And that's because I'm just going to use a scrap sheet of paper to mix my blue, because I don't want to clean my tin. And so you dip your brush in your paint. I loaded my brush with water. So I need a lot of water because I want to cover this entire sheet of paper. And so I'm going to show you this. So I place the paint on this paper because I want it thin. You see how watery that is? And when I paint, I'm going to paint like that, okay? So I want to keep my paint thin, and the more water that you use, the thinner your paint is going to be. If the paint is thin, the white from the paper will show through, and it will make your sky look like light blue. It'll make the picture, the blue, look light blue instead of a dark blue. If I didn't thin my paint so much, the blue would go on thick. You wouldn't see much paper behind the paint, and it would look dark blue, like night. That's a mistake that a lot of kids make. You just don't use even though we're using tins of colors that's already been mixed for you right now, when we start painting with acrylics and tempera, we'll probably paint with tempera next, because tempera is close to watercolor. Just paint the entire sheet of paper with this wash, a thin coat of blue. When the paint is out of one side of the brush, just turn the brush around. And think sky in your mind. It's very important. See, I'm dipping my brush into the water now. I want to thin some of this out that I've already done. And I keep getting my picture dirty for some reason, because I don't clean my table. I need to clean this table. But it's okay. I'm usually when I paint, I use many different colors. I know how to stop that from happening. I will put this paper right here, because when I run my brush off the table, it hits that black paint that's on the table. So you do what you have to do. Always pay attention to what's happening in your art. I have some brush hair there. I'm going to remove that brush hair. The more thin your paint is on this one, the more it's going to look very meditative or ethereal. Painting is good for mindfulness. So the older we get, the more activities we need to do, especially when you get up into your 50s, I'll say 50s and 60s and older, you want to do activities that causes you to think. You want activities that cause you to learn new things. Now, I don't have that many activities, but I'm always, when you're painting, you're always learning new things. Because painting is problem solving. So now what you can do, if you have a hair dryer, I want you to get your hair dryer, and I don't know where my hair dryer, where is it? Oh, there it is. Get your hair dryer, hold the paper down, and blow it dry. Nice. So now, decision time. I'm going to have to sketch in the, a matter of fact, I blew my paper too dry. I'm going to straighten it out. And what I could do is tape it down if it begins to bother me. That is, so I overdid it. Don't you overdo what you're doing. Okay. So next, we're going to sketch in, and I think what I want to do is use this light blue that we've been using and sketch. Get your small round brush. The round brush is the pointy brush, and we're going to sketch with it. We're going to sketch in the landscape a little bit. We're not going to do the trees yet, but we're going to kind of sketch in the larger shapes. So we're going to sketch in with light blue, the same blue we use for the sky. It could be a little darker. It could be a little darker so that you can see it. And the reason why we're using the blue is I want it to disappear. So you're going to draw the horizon line, and your horizon line don't have to be perfectly straight. Straight across the center. See, I made mine wavy on purpose so that we sort of know where the horizon line is. The horizon line is as far as the eye can see. Everything above the horizon line is going to be the sky. Everything below the horizon line is going to be the ground. I'm going to make my horizon line a little higher, because her horizon line is a little bit higher than center. It don't matter. I'm sketching in blue. It's going to disappear. Now she has a pond in the foreground that looks like a very long, it's a weird little shape, like a triangle that's laying down. So on the left-hand side, but it's not a straight triangle. It's a triangle that's kind of wavy. And it goes kind of like that. And I don't know if you can see that, but this pond actually goes all the way across the paper. It gets a little wider on the left-hand side. There's like a little thin line right there. It's really gonna disappear because it's going to go down like this. The bushes are going to hide some of this pond, but there's an area of blue. And just for fun, let's do this. Use your round brush, and like I was saying the last class, This is just how I approach painting after 50 years of painting. I have my own way of doing things. So my painting is not going to look like Iantha's, my wife's, but it's just going to be my interpretation of her painting. So what I've done is I've thinned out some blue, but I want a little bit darker blue, and I'm going to use the side of my brush, not the point. And I'm just going to fill in a little dark blue there. I want to keep it soft. I think I'm going to make it a little bluer because, and remember, watercolor should look like water. So it's okay. Matter of fact, since we are painting this not in acrylics but in watercolors, we want to use to get that ethereal look, you want to get as many properties of water as you can. So now I'm just led to do this right now. I think the pond really stands out. And like the top of that triangle, I made that a little darker blue. Shake your brush out. Every time I change colors, I shake my brush out in the water. Now I get the chance to use a little purple. So I want you to dip your brush in the purple, thin the purple out just like you did the blue. And I'm going to go over this part of the pond. The bottom half of the pond, the bottom part is going to stay very light blue. But I'm just going to add some purple. And what that does, it warms up that pond. It's really a kind of, it's a little strange landscape. And why I say that, the painting is cold, but the pond is warm. So it really makes you, it's really soothing, you know, it's meditative. Like we said before, meditative. And you see how I'm bringing that purple on over here? And I'm going to put some more blue over here on this side, on the left-hand side. That gets a little darker. Yeah. You notice I'm using water. Now, all I have now in my brush is water. So if the paint begins to run a little bit, that means you're doing it correctly. Okay? We're doing watercolor painting. Now, when we do tempera looks a little bit different. We may even do, you know what, we may do some gouache, because that's the next step up from watercolors, gouache. I'm going to use this purple right here, and I'm going to go into the background, and I'm going to paint some trees. Since we have purple and blue, it's good to simplify things. So this part is going to be the ground, and also this part. This part we just painted is going to be a pond. It's going to get more red and more brown as we move down to the bottom of the page. But since we have purple here, I want you to use the tip of your brush and just, we always paint trees from bottom to top, up. We're going to do a little grove of trees, just little thin lines in the background. Then we're going to do some little circles. Keep it soft. Her painting is very soft. See, let the water paint. You see how the water just bled there? That's on purpose. That's good. Keep it soft. Now her painting is very complex. Ours won't be as complex as this. Okay, it's very complex. So there's a little grove of trees on the left-hand side. I want you to go to the center, then move over a little bit. We're going to, just off center, a little bit off center, we're going to paint a little tree, a little purple tree. And so we're going to do the branch like this. And then make sure your brush cannot be dripping with paint, okay? Your brush has to be pretty dry so that the paint won't run. And just do some little branches at the very tip of your brush. Barely touch the paper. Barely touch the paper, very tip of your brush. Put a little tree, and then put some little grass back there. That tree is on a little grassy knoll. And right next to that, there's a grouping of trees. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I'm going to paint one of these trees large. So I'm going to get a larger brush so that you can see what I'm doing. So when I painted that tree in purple, I painted the trunk, and I'll say I used the wide part of the brush. I put some pressure on it to paint the tree trunk because the trunk is wider than the branches and the limbs. And then what I did was I just did some little limbs, the tip of the brush just barely touching the paper. And you have to practice this. It took me years to be able to do these thin lines, and sometimes I can do them, sometimes I can't. So I have to be totally relaxed to be able to do it. And you need a decent brush. And you guys, Splash Kids, you have a brush that's in your tin all the time that will do that. And then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to paint a grove of trees. I'm going to do tree trunks. In my mind, I'm thinking trees. And then it seems like those trees are blowing in the wind. So I can't tell exactly what's happening. Then I'm using the tip of the brush. I'm just going to do a lot of little marks like that. You can also do a dry brush for that. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the paint off my brush, drying my brush out. Now I can do this. You see how that looks? Do a dry brush technique. That's called dry brush. For advanced students that seem to really be advanced, and now I'm going to do it on my paper. Same thing I just showed you. I'm going to do the dry brush first, since I already have paint on my brush. Then I'm going to do the little trunks. Very thin. The paint needs to be thin. We can't see details. I'm getting the paint off my brush now, so my brush will be dry. Then I can do these branches. Now there's like a little hill here that goes up like that. And then you're going to do like a wash. You're going to use the same strokes you did for dry brush, but this time your paintbrush is going to be a little wetter. Now, the technique that she used to do this part in acrylics is different than the technique that we're using with watercolors. Okay. All right. Now, let's use some yellow now. So, it's easier to use one color at a time. And then when you go so far, you can add more colors. So we're going to use yellow, and I have a little green in my yellow. So you can use a yellow green. You can kind of mix it up in the palette. And I just want you to do a light wash with your round brush. I'm thinking grass. No, look at my brush strokes. I'm gonna mix it with a little green, yellow with green. Using the side of my brush. I'm doing it using a wash technique. Her painting has sunlight hitting more on the right-hand side. So we don't have white paint, but so it's more yellow. It seems to be more yellow is mixed with white on the right-hand side. So think grass. And so I'm just using, we talked about scumbling technique. So if you have too much water in your brush, just spread the paint out. Spread the paint out. Now, I want you to change colors for a minute. I want you to go and get some orange because it's going to be harder to do that later. And that's a little, try to mix an orange yellow, mix yellow with some orange on your palette. And you have to practice mixing, right? There's a little part on her picture that shows some dirt. And then there's a little orange line there. Bring some of that warm color in here. Pretty soon we're going to use a lot of orange, but right now we just do that here. We're also going to put some of this yellow orange. I know it's getting a little complex, so I'm going to try to make sure I don't let it get too complex. Remember to allow some of this blue to show through. So mix some orange with some yellow. And in the part where you have water, just put a little orange down there. It's like upside down grass. It's a reflection. We're also going to have some grass up here on top right there. Okay, I just saw that there, so I decided to put it there. Also, I want you to take some of that orange, and there's a line here. We're going to use this line. I just want you to paint it orange. But think about grass, so scumble it a little bit, and allow your orange to come all the way over here. And she actually I'm getting a little red. I'm gonna put a little red. I'm gonna mix a little red, make that a little bit red orange. So when I'm thinking, I'm not loading my brush up so much, okay? Now I'm using the side of the brush. I want this to be very thin. That's thin enough. So what I did is I shook my brush off in the water. So there's no paint on my brush. So now I'm going to bring these together with the point. You know, we're going to now get some dark green. So we're going to mix some green, get the dark green, and put it in your palette. Get your green, put it in your palette. And I'm going to mix orange with it. Mix some orange with it. And just draw some circles over here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So those are going to be some bushes, okay? Once you draw those circles, shake your brush off, clean your brush, go back and get some green, and paint your green in those circles, like that. Allow the paint to mix. So that I want you to sort of lose the circles. That's good. Let's go to the the left-hand side of the page. And let's go ahead and fill everything in with a light green. So you get green and thin it. Thin your green so that the paper will show through. Kind of like when we did the wash. And when you put your green on, let your brush gyrate up and down, up and down, up and down, using the side of the brush, not the point so much. Think about grass. Barely touch the paper so you can see what's happening, what you're doing. That green could be a little bit more yellow. So go ahead and put some more yellow in the green. I'm going to put some yellow in the green and do it again. Matter of fact, I'm going to just go back over this with yellow because I want that to be lighter. And since you have water in the brush, it'll thin out some. Now, if we had done this in gouache, it would look closer to it because you have white gouache. So she did a lot of complex mixing of paint, of acrylic paint on this. We're not gonna go no more complex than what I'm doing right now. She's a professional artist, and so we want you kids to be able to do this too. See, I'm doing my brush like this. I'm thinking grass. Grass grows up and down, so see, just like that. Remember this line here, this is a little pond. Don't paint over your pond. Take your time. I'm still using yellow-green. So if some of the green is, so if some of it is more yellow, some is more green, that's okay. It's good. Sometimes I do use the point of my brush, or the side and the point at the same time. So if we get rolls like this, that's good enough. Now I'm going to use some of this dark green again. It don't need to be too dark. And she has a grove, like some bushes that run like this. It's like a triangle, a long triangle that run all the way across the picture. It runs all the way across the picture like this. Now you have to keep looking at what I'm doing. I may be going too fast. I'm going to try to slow down. Let this green on the right-hand side come up very close to these bushes, very close, but they almost touch. Pretty soon we're going to use brown, but not yet. Try not to make straight lines in this case. I'm just going back, making this look more like grass. Think grass. So when you have the light green and the dark green together, it looks nice. I'm going to soften my horizon line. I'm putting water on the brush, and I'm going to go back here and soften this line some, if I can. I want it to blend into the sky. Okay, pretty good, pretty cool. We're going to go back with brown later, and or maybe purple, and do some more things. I'm seeing details that I hadn't seen before now, but I'm not going to get caught up on them. I want you to use your orange, get orange. And in your palette, mix some orange. And right next to your orange, I want brown. I want you to put brown there next to it, see? So I'm gonna get some brown. So we're going to be using all the colors we've used before to finish this. We're gonna use brown. We're gonna use orange. We'll be mixing these some. We're gonna use the green. And we may even use some purple. Okay, so we're going to, first we'll do some bushes here with brown. I don't want your brush too wet for this because I want these to stand out. And you can mix some brown with the green. Let's see, I want this brown to be a little bit darker. Or you mix it with red. Let's mix it with the red or orange. Let's mix it with the orange. And watch what I'm gonna do. On this line here, I'm gonna put some bushes all the way across. Just gonna stop the bushes on that line. Every now and then, mix a little orange in it. So it's not just flat brown. Remember to clean your brush out every time you change water. So I'm gonna put some orange in it so you can see. The orange almost looked like the brown. Actually, orange and blue makes brown. So think bushes. Let's use a dry brush technique with this. I think that'll work even better. So there's bushes along the bank of this little pond. If your brush is too wet, it's not going to, you know, you don't want your brush too wet. You want it to look a little scruffy. That's the dry brush technique. So you can see the distinction between the orange and the brown. I want to go and get some more orange and brown, and we're going to just trace bushes. We're going to add some green later, but we're going to trace the bushes. I think it might be easier to do the brown bushes first. At the bottom of the pond, remember this triangle shape? Just imagine bushes growing there. You can use orange and brown. You can use a dry brush. See, I put it on too thin, but I don't want it that thin. I want it to be rough. These bushes are on the edge of the pond. And you're going to add some green to it too. Keep your brush dry as possible. That means not a lot of water, mostly paint, not water. Just put some little points that go up like this. My brush is not dry enough. But this line here, this bottom line, that you can see grass growing up like that. I'm just using the point of my brush. It's kind of like if you was painting eyelashes. I just the tip, using the tip of the brush. It look like grass growing, dead grass. Now to make it look more like the seasons are just changing, add a little green. Add some green here. Just, you can intersperse green any way you want to. Down here, at the bottom here. Again, the dry brush. See how, since my brush is dry, it's going to make a lot of little marks. And make it look like it's grass. I'm painting it from the bottom up in that direction. Paint up, I'm not painting down. So that the mark that I make when I paint up, where my brush is not dry, I want the mark to get skinnier, skinny at the top. See, it gets skinny. So when I paint, I'm going to do it slow. I paint, then I lift my brush. Paint, lift the brush. When you lift the brush, the line gets skinnier. So I'm doing a bunch of them, a lot of them like that. And my brush is more dry here because my marks are smaller. And so I want my brush to be a little bit more dry. So I want you to get more of that orange and brown. Mix some orange and brown. You can mix a little green in it too, if you like. Let's mix a little yellow. I want some, she has some highlights in this thing. Matter of fact, let's do the yellow first. Just paint the whole bottom yellow. So you see the highlights later. Just think grass. The reason why I'm telling you, see, we paint with our minds. You paint with your mind. You're using your imagination. So when you're thinking about the object as you're painting it, your painting will begin to feel more like the object. So we put this yellow on here so that when we put the orange paint, use the orange, the yellow hopefully will show through. See? She has a line of brown here, like that. So this is like a row of bushes too. She actually had some green under there too. So you can get very creative as you're doing it. If you mix a little green, see how I'm doing that? That's okay. We're going to paint a tree soon. So orange, dry. I'm using the dry brush. The dry brush allows the color underneath to show through as well, but it looks kind of raggedy, so sort of looks like grass or something. You know, grass that's burnt by the sun, baked by the sun. Now, I want you to get the smallest brush you have now. The smallest brush you have. We're going to use the tip of the brush. We're going to lay this brush here. We'll use it later. Well, I'll lay it there on my thing. Now get the skinniest brush you have. We're going to paint some trees right behind this part here. Now, you could use green. Let's use the dark green first. And we're going to put some shadows. You could use blue, you could use dark green. We try not to use black. And then we're going to use mix of brown with the green. And see if that works as far as a dark brownish green. And I think I like that. We're going to paint one tree that does like this. Remember, we paint from the bottom to the top. So right off to the left of center, we're going to paint two trees. Once you start, you're going to flatten out the brush. Then as you lift the brush, it gets thinner at the top as you lift the brush. So it has one branch going this way. It has a branch going almost like that. Oh, I made it taller than she did, but that's okay. Then we're going to do another tree that has like two trunks. One goes like this and crosses over, overlaps. And then one comes up like this, straight, almost straight up, and bends. Now, we're going to put some branches, some limbs on these branches. And just, you need your skinny brush, and make sure you round the brush off. You round the brush off as you dip it into your paint. So see how I'm twisting my brush handle? I'm trying to get a point on the brush. I'm lifting my brush up. Do not press down. That actually tears up the brush. So you lift your brush up, trying to get a point, and then just paint some little branches any kind of way you want to. It'll probably look better with dry brush if you did it. Do one tree at a time so you don't get confused. Branches are growing off of the limbs. I mean, limbs are growing off of the branches. We're gonna have one come this way. I'm trying to just touch the tip of my brush. Now I could go back later and make it darker. And the way you would do that, you could use blue or purple. I'm gonna use some purple just to show you what it looks like. I'm going back over this dark brown with purple. And the reason why I use purple is because we've already used purple in the picture. So we want the picture to be balanced in terms of color as well as balanced in terms of shapes and forms. I'm mixing some brown with it. It's hard for me to think about what I'm doing now. You do this in kind of whatever feels good to you. Do it that way. As long as it look like branches and trees, it's okay. If you have too much water in the brush, it's harder to control. Try to use the tip of your brush. See? Try to use the tip. You can have more branches than I have. It's your picture. Everybody's picture won't look the same. But I do want you to practice using the tip of your brush though. Let's practice that. And then the more you do it, the better you'll get. It's like the wind is blowing the branches to the left. Get some more dark paint. So we basically have the painting. Now we do little details and cleanup and stuff like that. We're going to do a tree in the foreground. So what's good about this is a device that you can use. So we did the background, we have the middle ground, and now we have the foreground, which is down here. So what I'm going to do first, since I have time, I'm going to go back and define some of these shapes a little bit more. I'm using my brush. Look how I'm holding my brush. Sometimes you just have to hold your brush in a relaxed manner to get it to do what you want it to do. I'm using the dark brown and purple. I'm using purple and dark brown. I just want to define where these bushes start to grow, where there's not much light hitting the bottom of it. Now, you may not want to define where the bushes are growing. So I'm going to let these bushes come down here and go back up like that. So I'm making changes. I'm going to put some, I start to add a different green, but I won't because that could be confusing. Add some green to my brown. So the fewer colors that you use, the better your picture is going to look. I'm defining where these bushes hit the water. Now, I almost forgot, but I just saw it since I started painting that. Go back and get the orange with your little brown, and paint this reflection. So the bushes that we have here are reflected here in the water. So there's going to be an orangey brown. So it's like a mirror image. I'm using the tip of my brush. I'm not just doing anything. I'm using the tip of my brush to try to make some thin lines for this part. Now I'm just going to use the dry brush to cover that area right there for now. Now I may go back into that. Now I'm going back down here with my green. You should always paint the entire picture at once, so that you can see how the picture is developing, and if you need to make changes, you can easily make changes. I'll be telling you that a lot. I know a lot of you have heard me say that before. So I'm trying not to jump around too much so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm painting the picture. I'm considering the entire picture as I'm painting it. Okay, I hope you really work on your dry brush technique, because that would be a nice thing to learn now and to practice on for a while, practice it for a while. Now we're going to do this tree here. So get a wider brush. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and get a flat brush. Because I think Splash students, you may have a brush kind of like that, that's flat. You want it to be smooth, not raggedy. And let's use that dark brown again. Dark brown, so mix brown with the green. Let's put a little purple in it. Put a little purple in it. So I'll show you what I'm doing. So I'm mixing it here. See this purple? You can see the green, brown. I'm just trying to get a dark color, but I want to use colors that's already on the picture. Start at the bottom, a little space from the edge of your paper, probably 1/12 of the way, 1/8 of the way, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1/8 of the way in. The trunk, the tree trunk, we paint one side of the tree first. We're gonna go up like this, then it bends a little bit and go like that. Now we're gonna paint the other side of the tree trunk, because it's pretty wide, and that's going to go up and kind of flow into that like that. So right now it's transparent. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this brown, I'm going to mix some purple with the brown. I want the paint to be thick now. I could use blue, but I don't want to. You don't need a lot of water in your brush. Matter of fact, you can squeeze the water out of your brush with your paper towel. I'm going to paint it with this. The more purple I use, the darker it's going to be. I want to paint the one side of the trunk. This time, I already have the picture here. I can paint from top to bottom now, which I want to do. I'm using the edge of my brush. I'm going to add some green to this. I want it to be much darker. Now, I may have to add blue. I'm resisting blue, so I'm green and brown. Green and brown. Add a little bit more purple. Yep, more purple. The brush needs to be dry because right now it's transparent, but I don't want it to be. So the light is hitting the left side of the tree. So the right side of the tree, I'm painting with the edge of my brush. It's dark where there's not a lot of light hitting. Now, then there's a little line there and a little line here. So it shows you the tree bark. I'm just going to cover that right there. So the light part makes it look like light is hitting it. Now, since this tree bends to the left, this little area here has less light hitting it. So I'll make that dark. Now, a little trick. Now, this tree, once you paint this tree like this, it's going to look like it's in front of everything. But if your tree don't look like it's in front of everything, a little trick you can do is you can get your brush, get some orange, I would say orange, and in some places, dry brush, thick paint, place some orange in it. It just bring the eye forward. You could use red as well. Okay, all right. So, wow, we did it. You know what? I have enjoyed this so much. I have enjoyed this so much. I have enjoyed painting with you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Now, please join us Saturday. Remember, Splash is live on Facebook, Charlie Newton's page. When I'm live, I'm going on Charlie Newton. That's my name. And from 5 to 6 every Tuesday and Thursday, and from 11 to 12 every Saturday morning. Look us up on YouTube as well, and look at us up online, SplashYouthArtsWorkshop.org. Until next time, remember, art is for everyone. Bye-bye.